This is the Drake Insights Podcast, your weekly dose of cutting-edge senior living marketing insights. Join me, your host, Natasha Drake, for bold ideas, proven strategies, and inspiring stories straight from the experts. Tune in and let's conquer the senior living marketing landscape together. Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Drake Insights Podcast. I'm your host, Natasha Drake from Drake Strategic. Let's get started. So on today's episode, I am joined by the wonderful Morgan Lamphere, founder and president of Lauren Rose Senior Advisors. She has over 20 years of experience in the senior living sales and marketing industry, and I'm so excited to bring her on today. We're going to dive in. I'm going to let her go in a little more than I am in my intro, but really talking about with all the sales teams that she works with and coaches with and training and sales and marketing. What is she hearing on the front lines with the sales and marketing teams? What are the issues today? What are the biggest obstacles sales teams are seeing with everything going on in the news, a bit of uncertainty, what's going on in the world? How is she helping coach and train those sales teams to be able to overcome all of these obstacles, especially now with the boomer generation rising, which has been a really big hot topic that I've been talking about a lot in the recent episodes? What is she seeing, and what are some key actionable takeaways you can take from her to bring back to your sales team? So before we dive in, I already gave her a little bit of an intro, but Morgan started her company, Lauren Rose, around the same time that I launched mine. And so we didn't know each other ahead of time, but met then, and we've stayed in touch, got to know each other, become friends. And I'm just so excited that I think it's been about a year we've been talking about this, but excited to finally have you on to share everything, all your insights you know about this industry. So thank you so much for joining today, Morgan. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, Natasha. Thank you for having me. We're so proud to be part of this. And ever since you launched your podcast, I always had a goal of, I hope I get to be a guest someday. So I'm glad we get to continue all those good conversations we've had about how we help clients and what we do. So it's great to be here. As you said, I am the founder of Lauren Rose Senior Advisors. We started at the end of 2023 and have been having lots of fun and working with mostly life plan communities that are really looking at how they can grow their occupancy, how they can really develop their sales teams and their marketing strategy to get the most out of it for the right cost. And really, at the end of the day, make life better for the residents and the team members who are part of that community.
That's awesome. No, it's wonderful to hear your story. And I would love for you to give us a little background of your experience in the industry and then how Lauren Rose came to be, if you
I
wouldn't
know
mind giving us
everybody
that
always
story.
wants to know, wait a minute, your name is Morgan. Who's Lauren? Yeah, who's the Lauren in here? So, my journey in senior living started probably in the mid 80s in the back of an Oldsmobile station wagon. Not the way back seat that faces to the behind, but the middle seat. I can remember every Sunday, my mother, whose name is Lauren Rose, she and I would be driving back and forth to downtown Cleveland, where my grandmother was living in a nursing home. And she had dementia. And, I remember those visits were really tough on my mom. We would get back in the car and she would turn back to me and say, Morgan, if I ever get like this, put me in a home. I want to be in a place that I'm going to have other people around. My mom and dad live out in the country. They've always lived in a pretty rural environment in Ohio. And she said, it's nice. I love it. But if I ever really needed something like this, like grandma does, I want to be in a place that I'm going to have people around me where they get me, they laugh at my jokes. And I want a place that I can have a drink once in a while. And so we would dream about these kind of things all the time as a kid. I remember that. And, here we go. Fast forward into my career, and I end up having my first job in an assisted living community in the early 2000s. And I realized pouring coffee for some of those residents, I really am destined to be part of this culture, part of this place for the rest of my career. I just absolutely love working with older adults, hearing their stories. And I love the people who choose to work in senior living and the kind of care that they provide and bring to work every day. So, and now it's 2017, 2018-ish. My mom's starting to show a little bit of her own memory loss. And going through that as a caregiver and helping and working with my dad and thinking about when is the right time for someone to make this kind of mood, Oof, totally different when you're in the caregiver seat versus in the professional seat. So just getting that perspective. Not that I would wish to gain it. I would love anything in the world to have my old mom back, that we would be
Mhm.
able to go to the bar and have a drink together. But it's been a journey for me, and I know so many people that we work with. So when I decided to open Lauren Rose and we were thinking about what names it made sense to name the company, I said, you know what? My mom's always been my inspiration. She continues to be my inspiration. And so I'm going to name it after her. And so that's why it's called Lauren Rose. And I think it's a great reminder because the work that we do, at the end of the day, it's for people just like my mom. It's not for us, it's not for our pocketbooks. It's so at the end of the day, the people that live in our communities have the best lives possible. And just keeping that mission in the forefront is really important to me. And of course, my mom is very important to me as well. And so, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I honor her in that way.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love
Yeah,
hearing your story. Thank you for sharing
of
that. I
course.
appreciate
Yeah.
that. Tell us a little bit. I know you briefly mentioned, but what you all do.
Yeah. So, primarily, we provide sales and marketing, leadership, and support, and that can take a lot of different forms. For some of our clients, they just want us to come in and do some sales training. And we've put together a sales training program called Vision. And basically, what that does is it helps us address lots of different obstacles and challenges that sales teams may have as they're working with prospective residents. And we can customize that training program based on really whatever the community needs and what things that they're struggling with. Although we're finding that a lot of communities are struggling with this question of uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty in the markets, there's uncertainty in the media. People are feeling, you
Mhm.
know what, I'll just stay home and wait this out. So
Yeah.
helping our sales teams overcome those obstacles has been a common issue across the board with our clients. But we also provide marketing oversight where we can pull in agencies like yourself and other partners to help us put together a creative campaign that's going to help us with lead generation and lead nurture, managing that marketing budget, making sure that we're getting the most that we can out of our vendors, and just at the end of the day, providing results for the client. And so those are some of the key things that we do, really putting together a scope of services and work that matches up with what the client needs at that time. And I think our team really brings some unique perspectives to the table to address a lot of things that life plan communities are going through right now.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about this episode. So, when we first met, we talked about this. I think this is such a great topic to talk
Mhm.
about because I know when I was doing sales, this was something that was it came up even then, right? This is something that's always an issue.
Always.
But I think now with the different generations, you maybe have different tactics or different ways to go about it. And I think it's really awesome that you and your team help coach sales teams and give them tools on
Mhm.
how to overcome these obstacles. So if we can dig in and just get in here.
Yeah.
So we've already mentioned it, we've kind of talked about it, but when I first asked you, what is the biggest obstacle you're seeing, that's kind of where you came up with this uncertainty obstacle. So you talk a little bit about that and what you're hearing.
Yes. So I remember when I first started working with life plan communities, that was in August of 2008. And I had gone from working in rental communities where it was primarily a need-based decision to, okay, now
Mhm.
we're working with 70, 72-year-olds who are very comfortable in their homes right on the golf course. Their homes have just lost a lot of value. So there's a
Yeah.
perceived issue of, I just lost a lot of money. Everybody's retirement accounts were going down. It was a very, very stressful time of that recession.
Yeah.
And that was a really big learning experience for me to understand what a life care community can do and what it can offer for someone in that situation. And I think here we are again. The media is really taking advantage of uncertainty in the markets, and it is pulling people in. And I feel like a lot of prospects that we're talking to right now are just glued to either MSNBC or Fox News, and whichever one you're watching, the sky can be falling at any moment. And it's really important for you to continue watching because you don't know what part of the sky is going to fall next. And I think
Yep.
that's really where we need to coach our teams to help our customers take a step back, realize that if you're looking around your immediate environment, your family, what you have right now, the sky is not falling. We've gone through this before, and just put into
Mhm.
perspective because these people have lived through the recession, they've lived through wars, they've lived through all kinds
Right.
of ups and downs with politics. And even though it may feel like the worst that it's ever been, I think when you really dig in with prospects and you ask them some experiences that they have had, they have a different perspective and they can say, "Oh, yeah, we've been through this before." And, they
Mhm.
realize that the media is really holding our attention. And in the end of the day, making sure that you're making really good, solid financial decisions and really thinking about your own well-being and your own wellness, that's really the biggest value that you can do for yourself instead of really focusing on, I've got to watch the media just to see where the sky is going to
Yeah.
fall. So what we've done in that is what, really put together talking points for the team. And we've practiced this because it's not something that you could just say
Right.
in an hour-long strategy discussion. Oh yeah, make sure you're asking good discovery questions. It is
Mhm.
practice, practice, practice. And it's also arming the sales team with some financial expertise so that
Mm.
they can speak intelligently about what is happening with the customer's portfolio. They can ask the right questions and they're not in a position where they're, well, maybe you should talk to our CFO or maybe you should talk to your financial planner because you need to be
Right.
prepared for what that conversation and what agendas all of those different folks are going to have with the sales team.
Well, and because a lot of times, right, this many times is an excuse, right, that the prospect is saying. I mean, yes, they see the media, yes, it's scaring them, but there's always going to be a reason they're going to say now is not the time.
Mhm.
I'm not ready yet, and so by supporting them through this, making them feel comfortable, it then negates and it moves that excuse out of the way, right? So you can begin to move forward with that
Exactly.
relationship. So that's great, is that education and training and coaching. So then yeah, so what does this look like?
Mhm.
How do how do you coach your sales teams to break through this dilemma?
It's funny. I'm sure just like all of the folks listening have lots of feelings about role play. Some people
Yeah.
absolutely love role play. Some people, you say those words and they have goosebumps and sweat and there's lots of nervousness around there.
Yeah.
I always start with role play where I'm the counselor. So you be the hard prospect
Mm,
and let me
mhm.
be the counselor, and that way, sometimes that kind of takes the tension down and lets them hear, oh, okay, these aren't, overly complicated phrases. And as a team, we kind of talk through what a typical conversation might sound like. And then we pause, we take notes. Okay, what were some good phrases that resonated? What were some things that I didn't quite understand? And then we practice as a team. Okay, now you say it in your words, in the way that you would
Right.
normally talk to a customer, and then we give feedback. So I think having that kind of round robin role play approach is really effective, and it helps us uncover that this isn't a simple, "Hey, you're worried about the economy. Here's 4 reasons why you don't have to be worried." It's more of, "Let me ask some more questions. I wanna know
Mhm.
more about you." And again, just as you said, it's furthering that trust and furthering that relationship so that you can ask that person to take the next step with you.
And I think if you were to ask me if I liked role playing back when I was doing sales, I would say no. But
No.
my experience is even here doing this podcast, the more you practice it, the more you do it, the better and more comfortable you feel.
Mhm.
And so I agree. I think it seems scary and it seems silly, but honestly, unless you're practicing it, it's hard to just memorize. Like you're saying, it's not
Completely.
memorizing
Right.
something. It's
Yeah, it has to
it's
feel
feeling
natural.
comfortable
Mhm.
in that scenario. So that's great.
Yeah.
So, what else do you work with your sales teams to help them through this?
I will say another piece of this puzzle is not just talking about what we're gonna say when we're with our customer.
Mm,
I will say in a way that's kind of easy, right? It's easy for us to do role play and sort of talk through conversations and practice. That's easy. Where I find we have a challenge is that accountability piece. Okay, we said that we're going to talk through this and we're going to ask these certain discovery questions and we're going to do this type of follow up. Are we actually
mm,
doing what we said we were going to do? And that's the hard part, right? We can all talk a good
mm,
game because we're all in sales, but are we actually putting our actions where our words
mhm.
are? And I think that's another piece of the puzzle that we provide with a team to say, hey, and it's sometimes it's organization. All right, last week we talked about doing these things. How did we do with that? what are some things that are getting in the way with the things that we promised that we were going to do? And that's a lot with creative follow-up. I think creative
Mhm.
follow-up is such an important piece of the puzzle when it comes to developing strong relationships with our customers and keeping them engaged. And I think too often I've worked with sales teams and they'll say, "Oh yeah, we do creative follow-up all the time. I send notes, I send emails, I follow up with
Right.
them all the time." And there's a difference between
Right.
that and what creative follow-up really is. So I think holding teams accountable for that is another piece of our success. And we find when teams buy into it, when they see the value of it, they start doing it, they see the results, that's when the rubber is meeting the road. And of course, when we see more sales, we get a little bit more buy-in of, all right, that worked. I'm going to keep doing that again. And maybe to even try to do it a little bit more.
And it's customized to your prospect,
Hmm.
and it's helping build, like you said, that trust with them, that you heard them and
Hmm.
that you're a trustworthy source. Because you're talking about things that are really hard for them to talk about. It could
Yeah.
be health reasons, it could be financial worries, it could be all these uncertainty things. You need to build through that
Hmm.
relationship building and that trust first before you're able to then and go to the next step, I assume, is helping them then with specific experts and things to help them answer some of those questions.
100%. And, I think part of the role play is practicing setting expectations. So one
Mhm.
thing that I'm hearing from teams often happens is they have awesome tours. Oh my gosh, they loved me, they loved the community, everything was great. And we waved as the car drove away. Bye. Oh, I'm definitely getting a deposit and feeling super confident about it. And then, they talked to everybody in the office. That was a great tour. They're gonna make a good decision. And we send them an email and maybe we give them a call the next day and we send them a text and then we email them again. And gosh, you know what? They're not calling me back. What's going
Yeah.
on? They must have, driven off and disappeared. And I think what we're missing is setting the expectation that, hey, when you go home,
Mhm.
here's what's going to happen. You are going to fall back in love with your home. You're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to walk around with your glass of wine and think, I could never downsize this office. I could never get rid of this grand piano. I could never do all of the things that need to be done in order to make this move. And I think we need to do a better job as salespeople of making sure, hey, this is the expectation. You're going to feel this. And here's what I want you to remember in those feelings. And then we're going to talk tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Let's have a call tomorrow at 10 before that person walks out the door. Let's agree to that so that we can really not just leave it open and wonder why they're not calling us back. The other
Yeah.
thing I think is really important on the creative follow up side is it also is a way for people to get more inspired about what their community offers. Anytime I have a sales team member who is feeling frustrated, they're getting some rejection. Oh my gosh, I thought this person was gonna make this decision and then they decided not to. I always send them out the door. Go take a walk. Go take a walk. Go into dining. Go sit down with one of your favorite residents. Talk to them a little bit about why they did this and what impact
Mhm.
it's having on their life. Go take a photo. Go to the wine tasting event and take some photos. Those are going to be some of your tools when it comes to creative follow-up, and they're also going to be your reminders of the life that you are promising. And that's, I think,
Right.
something that's really powerful for sales team members is to get inspired about what this community can offer and remind them that, hey, this is part of our value proposition. This is what we can bring to a new resident.
Yeah, and how do you one of the other things we talked about was the value of a community,
Hmm.
especially life plan, as you talked about, and it can be a large investment, and helping them understand. That's one thing I've seen a lot in terms of marketing too, is how do we help explain the value and help them feel at ease with their uncertainty of the market. So I know you work a lot with lifeline communities and salespeople that work there. How do you support them on building that value?
Well, I love to use tools like
Mm,
MyLifeSite. MyLifeSite is one of my go-to tools that can
yeah.
really help provide a few things. One, a great training platform for financial planners. Trip Higgins and Brad Breeding that run MyLifeSite are financial planners, certified financial planners. They can provide really good training with your team and help them understand what are the tax advantages here. What does it mean when you have a financial planner wondering why would you take an entrance fee out of your accounts? You're going to have a huge tax hit. I can make more money with you in the market than you putting it into an entrance fee. I think just
Mhm.
having those resources on tap that you can learn from, that's a huge value. but then also using the financial calculator tool so that you can show a prospect what does it look like if you were to stay home and get home health care down the road or need assisted living down the road? What does that cost of staying home look like compared to paying the entrance fee? And what are some pros and cons?
So can you dig in a little more? So what are those specific financial tools that you use? And
hmm
we talked a little bit about Trip Higgins. So, but what else can you dig
hmm
in that you use with
Yeah.
your sales teams to help them?
Well, I'll say MyLifeSite is a fantastic resource. I highly recommend that. That's one that we like to add with our sales teams. It does take a little extra training to make sure that they feel very comfortable with the tools and that they are using them.
Right.
I'll say another good resource is every market that I've ever worked in, there's always a local financial planner or a local
Mm,
tax expert who the team will be able to connect with. Having them just come in and talk to the team a little bit about what's happening right now in the markets.
mm,
Just give them some education on investments. Not everybody is a savvy investor. So helping them understand stocks, bonds, tax advantages, some of the tax risks that people have when they sell big investments. That can be another really helpful training tool with the team to really make sure that they have that credibility and the confidence to speak to that so that they're not just deferring to, well, talk
right.
to your financial planner or talk to our CFO, because those people have very different agendas than we do. And we
Right.
want to make sure that we've got that same expertise.
And it can be, and like you said, you create a partnership with this person. And so
Definitely.
they know ultimately, not that we want to sell them a buy in the community, but they know that that's the
Mhm.
goal in mind. So how do we help put them at ease and be that partner? So
Mhm.
yeah, I love working with local experts, especially if it's those that you know
Yeah.
that are senior specific in the market, right? Work with most of the senior population in your
Mhm.
specific market. That can be helpful too.
We wanna make sure that our team really feels the value of what life plan and what life care
Mm,
can do and how it affects somebody's long-term financial picture. And I always ask, one of my great conversations if we're talking with a prospect about this big decision to choose a life plan community, oftentimes we'll hear from the prospect, oh, well, I have long term care insurance
mhm,
or I have a financial planner. I always just, remind the sales teams, remind your customers that long term care insurance, your financial planner, these are all tools that help you fund long term care needs. Your financial planner is not your caregiver. Your long term care insurance is not going to take off work and come and make sure that you have the care that you need. So if we don't want to just rely on those tools. We need to put a plan in place. That's what this is all about.
yeah. So especially now when we talked, I mentioned the boomer generation coming
hmm
and that, this has been a hot topic, obviously. We talked a little bit about that. So I was curious of your opinion on this. We talked about it in the past couple episodes on what your feedback is and if you feel like boomers are going to be open to making these types of moves and moving to these senior living communities in the future and even like the younger, boomer generation. What are your thoughts on that? And how do you
hmm
help, train your sales teams on what's coming?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's a wonderful thing right now. I'm seeing tons of surveys. I just saw Leading Age just put out another survey of what does the future of this
Mhm.
industry look like? What are people going to really want to see? As we see younger prospects coming in, I'm bullish that these are going to be prospects that are open to community living more so than before because they have the legacy of seeing parents and loved ones, aunts and uncles, other members of their family that have either made the good decision of going into a life plan community and had great results, or
Right.
they had some sort of a health crisis that made the family say, wow, it would have been good if they would have made some decisions or made some plans in advance because we didn't know what we didn't know. And that was a lot more time, money, effort, and it put other family members, put their health at risk because
Right.
they ended up having to be caregivers. So I think we're going to see, and in fact, I'm thinking about a couple that lives at one of our clients. They're fantastic testimonials to they had a parent, both of their parents had been in continuing care retirement communities in the 80s, and both parents said, you've got to do this sooner than you think. And
Right.
I think they're really sharing that message with other prospective residents that 72, 73 is not too young for a community like this. In fact, it's about the right age to get in, get comfortable, get to know your friends, know where you're going to be so that you can really have a very successful retired life.
Yeah, and I think especially that generation like we talked about, really craves that honesty and transparency. So everything that you're talking about now, the more we can train and coach our
Hmm.
sales teams now to understand how to overcome these uncertainty, that's how that boomer generation is going to be. They want that
Yeah,
transparency and especially when it comes to the financial picture and
definitely.
in life planning communities. So no, I agree. I think that's interesting. I think I keep going both ways where, I know like my dad, I'm like, there's no way he's going to move into a life planning community. But you're right in terms of they've seen what it looks like, what happened to their parents. And I think
Hmm.
also they have this perception of what that means. They may have moved their parents into an assisted living or a nursing home and not understanding what modernized life planning communities look like. I'm always
Hmm.
trying to explain that to my parents all the time. It's not like where you had brought your parent back when,
Hmm.
it's very different. So the more you can get behind and train your teams, I'm sure now ahead of time, will prepare them for that because it's now,
Definitely.
I think it's the next 5 years, they'll all be of age. So
100%.
we are
Yep.
in it. Was there anything else we wanted to talk about before that any tips you wanted to give before we ended for the day?
I was just going through some of my role play notes and things that we had done just recently with one of our teams. I think really helping a customer understand that their health is their wealth. And when you're building value for what a life plan community can do for you, helping this customer know that making this decision is making an investment into their health. We know life plan communities have a very strong reputation of actually improving the quality of life and reducing someone's risk of having to need assisted living or nursing care services down the road. So I think just really hitting that value home for a customer is going to help you close more sales. And continues to build trust because it's true. It's not just a cute line. It's a
Right.
true line that we know is valid, and we have hundreds of residents that I know we each know that could back you up on that statement.
Yeah, and in terms of data we have, everything's
Mhm.
quantifiable now.
Yeah.
Socialization we've seen. I mean, we just have so much more that we can use that it's important to what you're saying is yes, we know these things, especially on the marketing side and the data side. But how are you educating and coaching your sales teams on the front line? Because they're the
Mhm.
ones that are the communicating. Yeah, you can splash it on your website, you can say whatever you want, but it needs to be coached to those that are actually building the relationships with the prospects. So thank you for mentioning that. So, as we end today, thank you again so much for being on. I always like to
Absolutely.
say key actionable takeaways that you want to recap from the episode for listeners
Mhm.
to remember.
Well, I would say number one is if you're sitting in that sales seat and you feel like I'm just banging my head up against a wall, I'll
Mm,
never get another sale again. We've all had that feeling. Take a step away from your desk,
mm.
take a step out into your community, go and sit down and have a cup of coffee with one of your residents and enjoy it. Just enjoy the value of learning their story. And I promise you that refreshing experience is going to reset your intentions for the work that you do and know that you're doing really important work. And even though you're feeling the pressures of the community, just know that your work is very important. You are changing people's lives for the better. And if you just need that reminder, go out and talk to some of your residents. And I hope that helps. I hope that helps you reset for your sales for that week and find good success in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much
You're
for joining
welcome.
today, for giving us all of your expertise and insights, especially for sales teams. I know we have a lot of sales leaders who watch and listen to the podcast. So it can be a tough time right now, and I'm just glad we have coaches and supporters like you to back us up. So if anyone wants to learn more, of course, please reach out to Morgan at Lauren Rose Senior Advisors, and of course, reach out to me as well, Natasha Drake at Drake Strategic. Thank you so much for watching another episode of the Drake Insights podcast. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye. Real quick, if you enjoyed watching the podcast today, please follow me and subscribe so you're notified for the next podcast. And if you have any questions or want to talk after about anything that Drake Strategic can provide for you, please reach out to me, call me, email me, or visit our website at drakestrategic.com.